All right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you are joining us as we wait for our attendees to enter our webinar. Let me introduce myself. My name is Nusa Fain. I'm the Program Director for the Masters of Management in Innovation and Entrepreneurship, a joint program by Smith School of Business and Faculty of Engineering and Applied Science at Queen's University. It is my pleasure to host you in our special webinar where I will briefly talk about the program just to give you an overview of what you may expect. And then I have the distinct pleasure of hosting 4 alumni from our program that will share their experiences with you and tell you a bit about how it is to live through MMIE. I also have with me in the room our Associate Director, Marianne Young, who also takes care of our team coaching, and our application advisor, Bethany, who will take care of any questions you may have with regards to how to apply, when are the deadlines, what you may need. And she will be point of contact as you go through the application journey. So I will introduce, or I will let our alumni introduce themselves as we get started, but let me just briefly talk about MMIE and what makes us different from other Masters of Management programs. So we like to pride ourselves on 4 key pillars. We provide a customized learning journey to every single student. The program runs in 6 core courses, 2 project courses, and all the assignments related to the core courses you can tailor to whatever you want to achieve. Build a venture, scale a venture, work in corporate, design your life, and trickle your career into innovation and entrepreneurship. And within the 2 project courses, you choose the topic and the journey you take with them in order to kind of achieve the goals you've set yourself. We have cutting-edge faculty joining us that integrate theory and practice. We are a program that's delivered mostly online. We only meet on campus 3 times a year for about a week for 3 in-person sessions where you meet the faculty, and then throughout the year, you work with them synchronously and asynchronously online to complete the assignments. The main premise is we learn to know, learn to do, and learn to be. So therefore, integration of theory and practice and building the entrepreneurial mindset and skill set for innovation is really important. And to support that, 2 really important things that I think make us different from any other innovation and entrepreneurship program. One is the diversity of the program, because we usually have over 20 countries represented in our cohorts. We are discipline agnostic, so you can be an engineer, you can be an arts science student, you can be a medical student, you can be a business major. As long as you have entrepreneurial and innovation motivations and some experience, this program is useful for you if you want to build and grow change and impact in the future. And to support you on that journey, we have a strong coaching model. So I introduced Marianne, who's our Associate Director and Team Coach. She focuses on working in high-performing teams and supports you in building really those skills around teamwork. But each student also gets a dedicated program advisor. That program advisor works with you on an ongoing basis throughout the year on your projects, on your interests, coaches you through the career and through life, in order to achieve whatever you set yourself to achieve in terms of innovation and entrepreneurial skill set that you can transfer in real life. So that's kind of our key success drivers. As I mentioned, we have 6 core courses and 2 project courses. We lovingly call them by them numbers. So if I ask our alumni to tell me what 888 is, they will tell me the concept, they will probably not know the name. So 888 is the program core course that starts us off, and it's about launching new ventures. It provides an overarching review of everything entrepreneurial in terms of process, mindset, and kind of growing into the entrepreneurial shoes. That is complemented by 883, which is innovation in practice, that provides a view of innovation at a strategic level. And we start off with those courses being introduced in the August in-person session, we lovingly called the August Bootcamp, where people get together in person on campus to work on entrepreneurial mindset, to build high-performing teams, and to get introduced to our first 2 core courses. We also start with 884, which is design and systems thinking. So that is where we start looking into ideation, validation with the customer, and how design thinking fits into entrepreneurial and innovation practices. So I talk about the bootcamp, or in the in-person session. In those sessions, we focus on delivering non-course content that builds your entrepreneurial mindset, skill sets of high-performing teams. It embraces the processes. It looks into scale up. Those run in person on campus, and you meet all of your professors then. But then when you go home, and you can do this program pretty much from anywhere in the world, as long as you can manage time differences, you get a monthly block of a course. So the 3 courses that are introduced in August bootcamp then run until the December bootcamp. So you finish your 884 about mid-November time before you get to on-site, on-campus session again in December. In December, we focus on building around processes and innovation. We bring in practitioners from corporate innovation field. We do a hackathon, because that's how innovation can rapidly kind of engage in problem solving. And we introduce you to the other 3 core courses. So 853, which is managing technology and innovation, 831, marketing and sales, and 821, financing your new venture. You meet all of the professors on campus. You work in a fast-paced theory and practice integrated environment with your teams, with your classmates. And as you go away, those courses then continue asynchronously online with a series of Q&A Zoom sessions with the professors to keep you going. And that then gets us into end of April, May, when we meet for the final time on campus to look into everything else you need to know to successfully launch. We focus on law for entrepreneurs. We focus on financing for entrepreneurs. We do corporate innovation challenge hackathon with corporate partners. So you get a feel of how innovation may run in corporate environments. And you actually do an investment memorandum as the final exercise for your financing new venture class. And that in its core, so the core courses run you through the structured entrepreneurial and innovation process. Layered on top of that are 808 and 908 project courses. One is a market research course that finishes in April and starts kind of in early September, where you go and work on validating your opportunity or the market you want to position whatever research you do in. And then the final piece of the whole puzzle, this is your capstone project, or 908, where you focus on delivering what you set yourself to do. You launch a venture, you build a go-to-market strategy, you finish a corporate project. You have 3 months to work on that. So even though we're an entrepreneurial educational program, we kind of work in a way as an incubator where you garnish the support from your advisors, from your professors to build something tangible for yourself. So that, in a nutshell, is MMIE at a glance, right? We offer a customized program. It runs a year from August 1 to July 31st. It has 6 core courses, 2 project courses with 3 on-site sessions, so in person on campus. And the courses then run kind of one after another in about 5-week spaces so that you build the full innovation toolkit. So that's the program kind of at a glance. But here today, you've joined us to talk a bit to the alumni that we have in our house. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen so you can see them better. So I'm delighted to welcome MMIE 2020 and 2021 graduates. And so what I'm going to ask you all is to briefly introduce yourself, where you're currently at in your career and what you've been up to. So because I wouldn't give it justice. So I'm going to start with Sophia because she's first on my screen. So Sophia, welcome back to MMIE.
Thank you. Great to be here with everybody. I am Sophia Stone, based in Toronto, and I have two companies, a consulting firm that works mainly with large financial institutions that I went into the program with, and I have a tech company that we are currently testing in the market and heading to market in a really big way. So that's where I'm at. What else was the question? I apologize.
So maybe talk a bit about why MMIE.
Why MMIE, of course. So I had built a kind of successful-ish business. We were in the 7 figures before entering into MMIE. And I was at the point where I could do one of two things. I could figure out how to scale a services business. I'm sorry if there's noise in the background. How to scale a services business, which costs a lot of money. Or I could figure out a different way to scale the business by implementing tech. And what I realized was a large portion of my business was manual and could use automation. And if I could use automation, I'm sure there were a lot of companies out there that could use automation. And so that's really why I chose MMIE. I think I got out of it more than I expected for sure. But it was really to put the rails around this new idea that I had to potentially catapult the business, which has been probably one of the better decisions of my career so far.
Excellent. Thank you, Sophia. I'm going to continue with Tendai, who also came into MMIE with an idea. Tendai, welcome.
Thank you, Nusha. So yeah, Tendai, I'm based out of Edmonton. I think and currently I'm the CEO of Kunye, which is a personal finance management application specifically targeted at new Canadians and immigrants across the world. So when I came into MMIE, I think I had a day job, obviously, and I picked it because I had an idea about how we can help migrants manage their finances across borders a bit better, but didn't quite know much about the industry, didn't know what to do about that problem, and used MMIE as that way to explore the market, but then also come up with an idea and see if we could actually launch something, which is actually what we ended up doing. So really kind of awesome.
Excellent. Thank you, Tendai. And just to mention, Tendai co-founded Kunye with 2 MMIE graduates from the next generation and the next intake. They actually went to school with Ashley. So Ashley is an entrepreneur working in an entrepreneurial role. Ashley, welcome. Tell us a bit about yourself and your MMIE journey.
Hi, everyone. Excited to be joining you from Treaty 1 territory, where I live and work. So my journey with MMIE started, I think a lot of people have a similar story. They knew somebody in the program and convinced me to join. I was looking into master's programs, MBAs across the country. I was really interested in Queens, and someone had asked me why I wanted to do an MBA. I didn't really have a good answer as to why I wanted to go that route. And he shared with me that he was in this really amazing program that was MMIE. So I looked into it and I applied. And at the time, I was working on a national project that was building an inclusive innovation ecosystem for Indigenous women entrepreneurs. And I grew that project into a national hub as my capstone project with MMIE. So I'm still currently overseeing that program, and we just got new funding to bring in other programs. And outside of that, I do work with organizations across the country as an independent consultant on program development and their Indigenous strategy.
Excellent. Thank you, Ashley. And Ashley mentioned MBA, right? And a lot of people ask us, what makes us different from an MBA program? Well, why don't we ask an MBA graduate why he also did an MMIE program? So Matt is coming to you from Kingston. I think he's actually sitting in Smith Business School, where he's currently employed, but he's also an entrepreneur. Matt, welcome. Tell us a bit about your journey, and then the more important part, what made it different from the MBA?
The important part. Thanks, Nusha, and glad to be here. Great to see some good faces there as well. Miss you guys. Matt Hoxie. So I'm one of the founders of a company called Lidogo, which focuses on personal growth and impact. That was essentially what was born from my time at MMIE. I also, as Nusha mentioned, work at the Smith Business School. I run a program in advanced leadership for social impact. So kind of found myself here, and that's really where like my story was. I had a career in corporate world. 20 plus years. I was a little bit later to the game on the entrepreneurial side, but it's always been one of my missions. And for me, the MMIE was really that runway to actually bring to life all the dreams that I had. As Nusha mentioned, I had done my MBA, an executive MBA program. I was on kind of an operations track towards the top of a large organization, and kind of had a moment where I was recognizing that what I really wanted was not matching up with how I was spending my time. The MBA was great and a little bit more focused on the quantitative aspects. And in my group was an executive MBA program, great people, but really more focused on just driving C-level type of positions and a little bit more of shareholder gains. Whereas when I found out about the MMIE program, it was really more about people that wanted to drive positive change, to be catalysts in bringing to life either their dream business or driving social good. Even those that didn't have necessarily the business idea yet, they knew that they wanted something different. So the dynamic and the energy between the two was quite apparent to me when I came upon our cohort back in 2019, 2020, and not that one's right and one's wrong. It's just that with MMIE, like if you are somebody that really wants to bring to life your dreams and somebody that's really wanting to shake some things up, this is the place.
Excellent. Thank you, Matt. And shaking things up is something that Sophia has been doing for the past 2 years since graduating. So Sophia, can you run us through how your 908 project started, and then tell us a bit about what is happening 3 years later?
Wow, I think that's the part that was really huge impact for me. I went in with a pretty simple question, which was, how are financial institutions going to be impacted by the gig economy pushing into consulting? And did procurement need to be able to create some kind of automation and make it easier? While my research was not conclusive, I actually found something much, much bigger, which is, I think, something that we've seen with ArriveCan as well, this debacle. We're not very good at tracking suppliers and contracts once we're in them, as large organizations, and then more broadly in the supply chain. And so that one insight led to a patent, and currently we're filing 2 more in the risk space, which is kind of more than I had planned for. I wasn't coming in looking for a patent, and it has really kind of spiraled into an area of supply chain that I didn't see myself going, but has really kind of bolstered, especially this research came before the pandemic hit. And then the pandemic has really just proved the point, which is we need a unified way of tracking supplier performance, including professional services contracts at large institutions and trickling down. And so, that's completely different and so much bigger and so much more of a moonshot idea. And I think I went in thinking small and I came out thinking really big, with the steps to get to where I needed to go, for sure.
Excellent. And so can you talk a bit about the shifts that have happened and then the tools you mentioned in MMIE and the toolkits and how that shaped your journey a bit from, you know, day one when you said, I know my statistics stuff, to today.
Oh gosh. So it's kind of one of those, you know, you think you know until you realize you don't know anything. When I talk about MMIE, you know, I had a business and I had an idea of kind of a lot of the classes within the toolkit. And I was kind of learning as I went, if that makes sense. It was really ad hoc. And when I talk about MMIE, I talk about it like bowling, in that you can play with, you know, the rails up. But when you're a kid and you don't know yet how to bowl properly, you play with the rails down. MMIE was the rails. So it gave me guideposts to be able to build the foundations for a really solid business that could potentially be carried forward and that I could potentially execute against. And so that's really been critical. But at the same time, it's also opened my eyes up to really wanting more education. And so, you know, it also pushed me into kind of continuing to do personal development, which I didn't foresee. I just finished a program at Stanford. I'm in the middle of an online MIT program in supply chain, which is crazy. It's not anywhere I ever thought I would go, but it has been so not only academically rewarding, but personally rewarding, and also has really, in comparison to my peers who haven't gone through this program, I am on so much more solid ground because of it. I don't know if that answers the question, but it's just because I can pull on the toolkits and I can go back and say, okay, what did I plan? What was I thinking? I'm still using the financial model that I built in MMIE. It's been expanded a little bit because we have other potential revenue streams, but I mean, that is, you know, everything that I would have asked for. It allowed me to be able to spin up a data room really quickly, and then has led to me getting funding. So I've been funded by Microsoft in US dollars nonetheless, and it has also allowed me to go into a number of different top tier accelerators. I have chosen not to go with the ones where you have to give up equity, but it's still top tier nonetheless.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Sophia. And Tenda, I'm going to go back to the rails that Sophia mentioned and kind of the toolkit. So you came in with a pain into the program. Talk a bit about that pain and how it turned into Kunye. And maybe after that, touch on how you found your co-founders.
Absolutely. So I think you're absolutely right. Came in with the pain, didn't have a clue what would come out of it in terms of like an idea of like what a business could look like. So 808 was really instrumental in just getting me to understand more about that pain and more about that industry, because that's not, I was coming from like public health was my last degree. So here I am exploring what is a financial problem, and I have no clue or no knowledge of that industry or anything like that. So steep learning curve. I have to really learn about a new industry really quickly so I could come up with a business idea. So 808 kind of created like that ground, like, you know, the groundwork for understanding that industry. And in 908 was when I went into that deeper dive of, okay, what does this actually look like as a solution? How do I go about validating the problem and the potential solution for the idea? So in terms of Rails, that, as you know, Sophia said, that's what it provided me. And then having an advisor was also really key, because there were just things that I just needed to ask another person about. Hey, I need to know, I have no clue about this. Who can I speak to and who can give me a better idea of even where to start? So that's where like having an advisor was really useful, because then there was someone who was able to say, okay, I know this person that works on something similar or who works in this industry. I can, you know, organize for you to have a chat with them, and then they can give you some information or knowledge that you don't have, which is really great. And even while doing MMIE, during my 908, I was then able to get like a grant just to do some designing, some design sprints and all of that, which once again, knew nothing about, because I don't come from a technology background, all that. So I needed a lot of resources, and MMIE was able to facilitate and plug the gaps that I personally had in knowledge and experience in that area, especially starting a startup in an industry I knew nothing about. And in terms of my co-founders, I waited a long time because I was like, okay, who do I need? Where am I supposed to find these people? And it was only after I graduated and I was talking to like my advisor, again, my MMIE advisor, after I graduated, and they're telling me more about the new cohort. And obviously just, looking on LinkedIn and whatnot, attended a few events, MMIE events, and was able to see them participating. And I just literally reached out to them on LinkedIn and I said, hey, I started this, I've got this company, I've got this idea, let's talk about it. And reached out to 2 people that were just coming into the MMIE program. We then did a little project. There was a competition through TELUS, and we said, let's work on this. It's going to take us about a month to work on this. Let's see how we work together. And we did that, won a bit of money, which was great. And then we decided to go full on. And now we've been on this journey together for a little bit over 2 years. And honestly, they're the best co-founders of life. I'm just like, wow, how lucky am I that I was able to find these people? But literally, MMIE came through in more ways than one. So really, I'm really happy about that decision anyway, to take part in the program.
Thanks so much, Tendai. So now from the entrepreneurial spirit to the entrepreneurial spirit within a more corporate environment. Incidentally enough, and I just realized this now, both of my corporate alumni work at a university, but that just makes the resource and the boundary conditions of innovation a bit more interesting. But Ashley, let me start with you. You came into MMIE with a business idea that ended up pivoting. Talk to me a bit about that journey and how the MMIE toolkit potentially contributed to that.
Yeah, I think the MMIE toolkit saved me from a disastrous idea, but it was something that I had thought about for years. So I feel like when I started at MMIE, I had full confidence in my ability to carry out the program and the role at the university. But there was always just these side ideas that I had, and I never really had time to put any thought into seeing if it could really be a reality. So the idea that I had was I wanted to open a wine bar because I had gone to business school in France, and the wine bars there are really cool. They have these self-serve machines. It's awesome. And I thought, why don't they have those here? In any case, so I did a lot of research into the wine industry. Turns out it's like illegal in Manitoba or something to have these machines. And there's some type of bylaw where you can't have that type, and that's why nobody has those wine bars. So I learned a lot about that. I learned a lot about the strict laws around wine retailing in Manitoba. It just would have been a very restrictive idea here. And it was kind of turning into not really opening a wine bar and opening more of a restaurant with wine, which wasn't really actually what I wanted to do. But with, the 808 project, it gave me between 4 and 6 months to just, work on this idea. I used all of the tools. It was like a deep dive. And, now I know that it's not possible, at least right now where I'm living. And I can rest easy at night because I felt like that was something that I would have regretted years later if I never actually looked into, this dream that I had.
That's excellent. But then you ended up doing the other project on something completely different. Talk to us a bit more about that.
Yeah, so I wanted to design this role for myself in overseeing this national Indigenous hub that's focused on inclusion. And so at the time, we were really focused on entrepreneurship and innovation. And so I built out a multi-year strategy on what could we do as a hub to, this is my cat who was sick this morning. What could we do as a hub to build an inclusive innovation ecosystem for Indigenous women entrepreneurs across Turtle Island? And that was the question that was, my Northern Star and guiding light. And I built the rest of the hub around that. And, that was almost 2 years ago now, and we've expanded into other programs, and, we're doing events across the country right now. And it's been really beautiful to watch everything unfold, especially through the pandemic in a virtual world.
You make a great point. You were the cohort that did everything online, right?
Yes.
So we ended up getting everybody on campus afterwards when COVID restrictions allowed it. But can you talk a bit about what the experience is of doing this online and being responsible kind of for your own time management and productivity? Because the classes are mostly asynchronous unless you're in Kingston.
Yeah. So I've always been someone who worked remote. So I think working from home and being self-motivated came naturally to me. It was just the isolating piece of COVID that really got to me. I wasn't really actually used to being home 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I'm used to a lot more human interaction. But I'd say definitely I had to make MMIE a priority. I was working full time throughout MMIE. So it was basically like I had my full-time job and MMIE. I didn't really do any consulting while I was doing the degree because it does take up a lot of your time. And I was really motivated, especially during the coursework, to never fall behind on the deadlines, because I found that even if you got an extension, the next deadline was a couple days away. So you were never really, like, you wouldn't really catch up. So just really being disciplined to stay on top of things, use the resources that are available, like the Slack channel, other MMIE alumni, and especially the advisors.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Ashley. And Matt, kind of over to you. You came in from corporate with a vision of launching a venture. You're back to corporate while launching a venture. Tell us a bit about your 908 and where it's taken you.
Yeah, so I came in, even before that. So when I was an undergrad, I wanted three things. I wanted to essentially work my way up to the top parts of an organization, live abroad and go overseas and do a lot of traveling, and then basically build my own business from the ground up. So in the first 20 years, I did achieve those first two, but the other part was really kind of bubbling. So like I mentioned before, I was using MMIE as the runway. I had actually, before coming here, traveled around for 40 days, just meeting coaches, entrepreneurs, kind of really experiencing things that I maybe sacrificed, through all the different things that I did back in my career in supply chain and logistics and operations. So I came in with an open mind and really just driven to bring to life my initial idea, which I was seeing my father going through retirement, and he was a career salesman and had tons of knowledge and intellectual capital, but was now essentially disassociated from industry and business and didn't really know where to go. And he lost a sense of purpose. And I wanted to find a way to bring that and that baby boomer generation that was retiring, in droves, back into a younger generation to help with career development, for empowerment, a lot of different things. And there had been a divide between a lot of those generations as well. So initially I'd come up with some mentoring programs and different things that will be more engaging and dynamic to bring that together. But as I did more research, especially in that 808 part of the process and getting into the next parts, I was recognizing that, I wanted to open it up even broader, not just necessarily those generations, but at the core, it was wanting to really embed more empathy and seeing the value in each person. And for me, where MMIE, not only what everyone had said before, but also for me, it was like truly the people. Like I was able to then open so many doors and see so many different perspectives, because from our class, I believe we had like 22 different countries that were represented in our cohort. And, even downstream, it's helped me with my own business as well. We just launched a mentorship program for 1,000 youth entrepreneurs in Ghana. So the different things that have all of a sudden continued to compound and build together. The beauty is sometimes you don't know what exactly you're going to start out with, but then as you keep iterating, as you keep learning, keep connecting, you then really start to narrow that scope, and then you can build exactly what each of the people I've spoken, like they find that path, and you can build exactly what it is that you're supposed to. So for me, that actual process, I called it the art of learning in the open, with something that I'm able to then essentially bring to life in a platform that we're white labeling to organizations today. So it was a pretty cool experience.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Matt. So as you will have seen, we've kind of gone through entrepreneurial and corporate back to entrepreneurial. The program works in that way to build you the skill set to succeed in either or of the environments, right? Because it's just limitations of resources, tweaks in the processes, and we deal with all of that from an entrepreneurial and corporate perspective. So if you have any questions for our alumni panel, please feel free to put them into the Q&A. I will answer the one from Cara. So we've mentioned Ashley worked 4 times. Sophia had a business to work with. So 15 to 20 hours a week is what we estimate your dedicated time will need to be. There are points where there's more. There are points when there's a bit less. So from that perspective, an estimation of an average 15 to 20 hours a week of time. We have had people that have traveled the world while doing MMIE. So the only requirement is for you to be in Kingston on campus for the 3 on-site in-person sessions, 1 in August, 1 in December, and 1 in late April, early May. So kind of that's the journey to go through. All of our alumni have been there. So what I'm going to finish off as I wait, if any questions maybe pop up. Sophia, I'm going to go back to you and ask, what piece of advice would you give future entrepreneurs and innovators that might want to do MMIE?
That's a really good one. I think the idea is to really be open to potential. And I say that because I think the biggest lesson is not to go in with a solution, but to really understand the problem and then to look at a bunch of different solutions. And I think in order to be really good at innovation and entrepreneurship, you can't be too tied to your idea. I have an aunt who had an herb shop in the small town we lived in, and it was never going to work. And she invested so much money in it because she was so married to the idea. And ultimately it did fail. And I think that kind of like what Ashley was talking about, you have to be really open to understanding what the problem is and what the potential solution is, and to be really open to where it takes you rather than really trying to be tight and constrain that. I think that's the most important thing for me that I would say that I got out of it. And I continue to implement in cycles in the business by getting user feedback, changing, iterating, because you may design something based on your ideas, but it really depends what the user is going to buy or use. And so that's probably my biggest piece of advice.
Excellent. Thank you, Sophia. And Sophia brought up an important part, right? Fall in love with the problem, not the solution. And that's what we do with hackathons. So just so I answered the question online. So we run at least 2 hackathons throughout the program, and we also run a demo day. So let me explain that a bit. And then I'll ask my alumni to maybe elaborate a bit more. So in your first in-person session, we present you with a problem. So it might be a wider problem, or it might be a problem coming from an entrepreneur. It usually starts with, how might we? And from there onwards, you then have 48 hours to work with your team. And you get 2 teams in a year, a fall term team and a winter term team. You work with them 48 hours on finding the solution to that particular problem. So sometimes they're brought from a company, sometimes they are kind of brought as a wicked problem to solve. So we get our minds going. So as an example, this year we had as a guest speaker, the CTO from Loblaw come, and the students provided solutions on how Loblaw could potentially reduce their carbon footprint in the future, because they have committed to a variety of initiatives in doing so in a particular time. So that's one hackathon. The other one's a corporate innovation challenge, where we bring in local companies or Canadian companies that provide a challenge to the team within the corporate setting. So you do also get an experience of solving a wicked corporate problem within the space of 48 hours. So those are the two kind of hackathons that we run on a kind of a yearly basis, one in the other on-site session. And then we also run Demo Day. So what we do with Demo Day, we lovingly call it a 100-day challenge, where you apply for a pitch type competition. And for 100 days, you work with an advisor to get that pitch polished, market validated, so you can present in front of investors, entrepreneurs, and innovators in a demo day. So you also get the opportunity to really speak with experts within the field and present whatever you've developed throughout the journey. So that's kind of in a nutshell where kind of theory meets practice in really fast-paced problem-solving environments to grow your entrepreneurial and growth mindset. So hopefully that answers the question. And William has sent a variety of them. So I'm going to start with Tendai to answer a couple. So Tendai, why Queen's University and MMIE?
Yeah, I think why Queen's and why I think it was really MMIE that drew me to Queen's, to be honest. And it was the idea of the fact that, well, I don't have to come from a business background to get into the program. I get to explore, go on this adventure of exploring the ideas that I have, but like learn, and it feels like an incubator, and it makes up for like the deficiencies that I had in knowledge base. And then in terms of Queen's itself, it's obviously seen as a wonderful reputation as a university. So there was just like no, yeah. So that was a kind of an obvious thing. It's like, okay, Queen's is a great university, great reputation, which has proven itself out obviously in how we continue to relate to Queen's and how Queen's continues to support us, and how other alumni, despite regardless of what program they're from, just come to your, like they literally come to your rescue if you just say, I came from, I also went to Queen's, which is really, which speaks highly, which is speaks loads of what the university and the culture is at the university, which is helping each other and making sure that we prop each other up, which is fantastic.
Thanks so much, Tendai. So I'm gonna kind of continue with Ashley, and then Matt will share a couple of his experiences as well. So Ashley, the next question William has is, what impact did the program have on you? And then the tricky one, were you satisfied with the outcome of your studies?
What impact? I mean, they're both, the impact, I guess, I don't know if I really would have ever spent the time to create the role and the national hub the way I did if it hadn't been for MMIE making that, like planting that idea in my head that was something that I could do. I think I'm someone who I'm a starter, and then I like to hire other people to be the continuer. So I do get bored really quickly. And I think, at the time when I was in MMIE, I was kind of feeling unsure about the role that I was in. And, it was at their advice where it was, well, why don't you just create something new in the role that you're already doing? And since then, I've been continuously doing that year after year. So instead of just leaving, I've been, working to incorporate more diverse projects into the role that I'm already doing. Was I satisfied?
Yes, with the outcome of your studies.
Yeah, I mean, minus the fact that it was super annoying that everything was virtual because it was the pandemic. But I mean, what can you do? Everybody was kind of stuck at home at that point. But I was still able to make really, really valuable connections and like strong relationships, despite being virtual. So I think that that's something that I'll take with me for a really long time. And I'll always be an active member of the alumni community. Like, despite the pandemic, I always look back on MMIE as a really positive time in my life.
Thanks very much, Ashley. So really appreciate that. And we worked hard against the pandemic that year we lost our battle. So all of the on-site session happened virtually as well. But it's really interesting to note what Ashley has said. And I think Matt can talk a bit about the connections made in the MMIE, even though it was a virtual environment. And for Matt, Sophia, and Tendite, it ended up being virtual right at the end where it got most exciting. The connection is still there because we run Q&As throughout each week with the professors. We run bi-weekly masterclasses to build on kind of entrepreneurial knowledge and everything to get you around it toolkit. So that's kind of my promotional piece, but Matt, William wants to know, why would you recommend MMIE to an applicant like him?
Yeah, and I think even Ashley was saying too, like some of the key words like builders and creators and things, and I don't know Sophia and Tendai already, but too, like for somebody that is wanting to bring to life either their vision, an idea, and to learn more and challenge themselves, this is that type of program. And I think why it's a differentiator is because it provides that right kind of pathway and process for you to actually do it. Because, you know, you mentioned too, Nusha, like with theory, application, that type of thing. So I think what's great about MMIE, it's the balance of theory. So you will learn how to do things. You learn the what's, you learn the why, all of that. You will get that connection, that network, just the body of individuals and people that can actually not only just serve as your classmates, team members, but truly your brain trust or co-founders, as we've seen too. And it's a true, you know, kind of a network that goes beyond just even your own year. And then lastly, it's the application part where you mentioned too, you have the regular cadence with the calls. You're going to be held accountable to then driving it and moving it forward. And will it be easy? No, but I would suspect that if you're interested in this program, you're not wanting to do something that's easy, right? And I think with this, it's just that format and really just the people, the energy that actually can just help power you to where you want to go.
Excellent. Then I'll just finish off with William's question, kind of starting with Matt, but then addressing it to all of my alumni. What's your progress so far?
Yeah. So from when, you know, I was in the program too, like I mentioned, and like a couple people, like I've definitely pivoted over the course of time, but really it's helped me to actually find the right problem to solve. So now we're live, launched the business. We're moving forward. We developed a platform actually, and it's going to both corporations, big, medium-sized corporations, as well as some individual founders. And I've improved my coaching practice and a few other things. While at the same time being in Kingston, I was able to build a lot of relationships while I'm actually now here running an advanced leadership program in the business school too. So for me, it's brought so many amazing people into my life and opportunities too.
Excellent, thank you. And as I'm scrolling down the questions, so while we also answered the question, ladies, what's your progress so far? Isurabel would like to also know if you can share any tips or advice to prospective students considering to study MMIE. And I'll hand it over to you, Sophia, first, and then to Tenda and Ashley.
This is absolutely a program where you get in what you put in. So there are absolutely students who probably go in, they learn some stuff and then they leave, which is fine. But I came in not for grades. I didn't need grades. I am at the stage of my life where grades don't actually even matter. I walked out with over a 4.0, but it's because I was hungry. And so I think if someone were to ask me like what my tip is, it's really choose this program if you are willing to commit to this program. If you're not willing to commit, I mean, do what you want, but if you really are able to commit and put in the effort and build, like, you get way more than you would ever expect. And I think it's kind of been clear in this panel. So it's really, you get in what you put in. So put in the work, take the time, it's a lot. It's a big commitment, but you're getting, not only are you getting a master's degree from one of the best universities in the country, you are getting a network. Last week I saw MMIE folks in person in Toronto. Over the weekend, I sat down with another person from our class to go over and do some work together. It's the network, it's everything, but if you go in not putting that effort in, you're not going to come out with that. So just really make sure that you're ready for it and you're ready to actually it was hard. I mean, it's a lot of time commitment, and I wasn't goofing around. I didn't have really a life, but that's kind of how I work anyway. But it's amazing to come out of it with so much more than you ever expected.
Excellent. Thank you, Sophia. So Tendai, talk to us a bit about Cunha Progress and then a tip or two for applicants, please.
Yeah, I guess with Cunha, we've done a lot of like validation of like our problem and certainly like solution validation. And now we've got a beta launch where we're testing out our platform with actual users, and people are moving money across borders and collaborating over shared finances. So that's where we're at in terms of progress. In terms of tips, I mean, Sophia really nailed it, which is you really do get what you put in. And I think some homework for you is to figure out what you want out of the program, because whatever it is, that's what you're going to chase, and just be open to how you might be guided in the program, you know, as you're trying to uncover whatever it is that you're trying to achieve. Because if you're not open to feedback, if you're not open to the information that's coming at you, then obviously it's not going to be a really useful exercise for you. But if you know what you want, and if you're ready to work hard, oh yeah, this is the program for you, because what you will truly get more than what you thought you were going to get out of it if you put in the time and the effort.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Ashley, same question for you. Progress made and a tip or two, and maybe you can address Michelle's question. Did anybody feel torn between going in for an MBA or MMIE? And if so, why did you make the different decision? I think you touched a bit on it when we started, but maybe elaborate on that a bit more as well.
Sure. I guess putting it really bluntly, the only reason I wanted to do an MBA was just to get the letters. And I was going to view it as like a highly transactional experience. I was going to pay the money, do the courses, and like, that was it. And I was willing to put in the time to do that. And it was at the advice of another MMIE alumni who said, that doesn't really sound like the best use of your time. And, you know, he talked about, and he knew me pretty well and knew that I was, you know, a creative, passionate person who liked to, you know, take on different projects, do a lot of community work. And he was telling me about how MMIE, you know, there's business courses, but then there's also this huge aspect of supporting you through entrepreneurial and intrapreneurial ventures. And maybe you'd actually get something valuable out of it. And not to say that an MBA is not valuable, it is. But for me, I had no doubt in my mind that I couldn't do it and succeed. Whereas MMIE felt like something different, something challenging. And like my other peers here have said, you really do get what you put into it. It's really not like, you can't really look at it as a transactional experience where you just show up and leave. If you do that, you're really not going to get anything out of it. It's you have to bring in your passion, you have to bring in your projects, you have to bring in your ideas to really make this program come to life, because it's kind of like, it's really reciprocal. And I think that's something that when it was described to me that way, it really just piqued my interest. And now I definitely wouldn't have had it any other way. Maybe one day I will do an MBA, but certainly not in the next 10 years, probably.
Can I add on to that too? Because I looked at MBAs as well. I don't know, Tendai, if you did, if that's just like a natural course. But I think Queens is doing a lot of really interesting things in innovation. There's a lot of talk around MBAs and how the numbers are dropping in MBAs. And because of that, Queens has begun to offer these Master of Management in specific areas of expertise where people can grow. And I think that's a brilliant idea. So if you're interested in AI, you can do the AI program. If you're interested in fintech, you can do that. But this is really, if you want to be innovating in whatever you're doing, in your relationships, in anything, if you want to think about how to improve and innovate on things, this is the program. And so I mean, I looked at the MBAs that had entrepreneurship in them. Actually, I was specifically looking for an entrepreneurship program, and they all still felt like MBAs. This is the only program that really felt like, okay, I'm going to put the foundation around this idea that I have, and I'm going to go to market with it. And so that, I mean, as an entrepreneur, that's exactly what I needed. And I think it's kind of like, do you want to go to Harvard or do you want to go to Stanford? Like, if you want to work in middle management, do an MBA. But if you want to start a business, do MMIE.
Thanks very much, Sophia. We appreciate all the insights. So we have a couple of more questions, and Matt, I'm going to address this one to you. So there was a question about all the resources available, and as part of your journey in MMIE, you also did the Queen's Summer Initiative program, lovingly called QuickSee, at the Dun&Despande Innovation Center. So maybe talk to us a bit about that and the resources that come from Queens for Entrepreneurs.
Yeah, and kind of to what Sophia was just saying too, when you're part of this, you're accessing all these different channels, and there's now like more and more different master's programs too. So MMIE was really what's amazing too, because it's experiential and it's different, and now you're able to connect the different arteries. So as Nusha mentioned, there's the QuickSee program through the Dun&Despande Innovation Center at Queens. So my business was part of that during the summer of 2019 into 2020. And there's just so many different areas where you can connect. So through that, I was able to tap into a lot of the undergrad students as well as some others from the community. So then I maintained a lot of relationships with them, whether they interned even with my business, or I actually set them up with some of their first customers and vice versa. So it's an amazing area where not even just your own network within your cohort of MMIE, because it's such an amazing, diverse mix of people with so many different skills, but you can tap into all of the different intellectual knowledge and capital of the school, of the university as a whole.
Thanks very much, Matt. And so just to answer Alex's question, we do not offer a dual degree as the MMIE program. We do have a portfolio of 13 Master of Management type of programs, including MBAs. And what happens is after you graduate, if you wanted to take another program, there is a cross-referencing done of courses that might be transferable. And based on that, it is identified what kind of courses you would need to take to complete an additional degree. So hopefully that answers your question. I'm going to put a quick slide up to show you how you can get in touch if you are interested. So there is a number, there is a web page. Bethany is available through the application process to answer any questions you may have. I want to thank my alumni for joining me in this fabulous discussion. So every time I see everybody, I am impressed how you're, changing the world one step at a time. And I'm super proud that MMIE was part of your journey. So thank you so much, Sophia, Tendai, Ashley, and Matthew. If there's any other questions that you may have, please feel free to reach out either over LinkedIn, over email. On the webpage, you will see the application details. So just for any international potential applicants that are in our audience today, the application deadline technically is today, just to allow for kind of the visa processing times to ensure you are able to start August 1 with us as the program launches off. So we are still considering applications from the international audience. What the program does for you, it's a 1-year, 3-semester program. As it currently stands with the Canadian immigration policies, based on your study permit, you are allowed to work full-time in Canada as part of doing MMIE, and it qualifies you for a postgrad work permit as you graduate. I think that was a question somewhere in between. So for the international audiences, the time is ticking. We are still considering applications, but due to kind of time processing of visas, we are closing out that application process quite soon. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to get in touch. Happy to answer any you may have. Again, thank you so much to the panel. It was an absolute pleasure as always. And for the audience, hopefully we see you in MMIE 2024. Have a great rest of your day, everybody.